Hi, I'd like to continue with Aristotle now. I'd like to recap a bit, to review what we've said so far. First of all, Aristotle's metaphysics is that he believed in universal forms, but he believed that forms existed only in specific objects. They were not existing in some sort of other world, some topos noitos. Forms, whatever they might be, existed in the specific thing. So the form of a dog only exists in a dog. The form of a tree only exists in a tree. So there's no form without matter, no matter without form. And in terms of his epistemology, Aristotle said that if you want to know something, you just have to look at specific things. So unlike Plato, who said you contemplate these abstract forms and then you get ideas in your mind, Aristotle said no. You look at specific things and then you understand those things. And that's where your knowledge comes from observation of specific things. Now, he was also concerned, as was Plato, with the purpose of life. What is the purpose of a human life? And he said that, without understanding our purpose, we can't know how to live properly. Now, for Aristotle, he was very clear that the ultimate goal or the chief end of human beings is happiness. We strive to be happy. And he could figure this out because it fulfills these three qualifications, that it's self-sufficient, final, and obtainable. In other words, it's something that you want for itself, and it's good when you get it by itself. And you don't get it for the sake of something else. You get it as a thing for its own sake, and finally you can obtain it in daily life. So the question then becomes, for Aristotle, how do you attain happiness? How do you live the right kind of life to become happy? In order to do that, he said you need to understand the nature of the human being. What is the makeup of the human psyche? So first of all, he said there are three levels to the human psyche. The first level is the vegetable level, which I mentioned. It's the part that governs our normal growth. It's like plants. The part of you that just grows automatically without any kind of rational control. Secondly, then, there's the animal part, which is where your desires, appetites, emotions come from. And this also springs from a non-rational part of the soul. You don't decide that you're hungry or that you're sleepy. These things come about, and then you have to decide what to do about it. So there's the difference here between the animal and the vegetable, is that the animal desires and appetites need to be, or ought to be, controlled by the rational part, which is the truly human. So there's a third level: vegetable, animal. Human level is the rational part. And according to Aristotle, human reason actually also was divided into two types. The lower part is the practical reason, which governs our everyday animal desires, appetites, and needs. And then there's the higher part, which he called the philosophical or intellectual reason, which seeks to understand abstract principles and scientific, laws of the universe. But he said most people deal on the realm of the practical. And so, to live appropriately, in a practical sense, our practical reason needs to function properly. And so for Aristotle, proper functioning or excellence of anything, any kind of behavior, is what he called virtue. Virtue is the excellence of a thing. It's also, in a sense, a habit. It's something that we do and we become good at it. So if we think well, if we think appropriately, that virtue that we discover, that we develop, is the virtue of wisdom. So practical reason, the reason which governs our everyday behavior, should be guided by practical wisdom. And what that means is that our wisdom then has to be good at figuring out what is the appropriate behavior. Whenever we have to make a decision, our wisdom, our practical reasoning, has to be wise enough to figure out what is the appropriate way to do something or to respond to something. Now, again, Plato would have said if you want to understand the appropriate way to live, you should contemplate abstract forms. Aristotle again says no, if you want to understand the appropriate way to live, you have to look at specific things and people and situations and determine then what is best. So, for example, what is the appropriate amount of food to eat? Well, Aristotle said if you're a huge Olympic wrestler who just works out and trains all day, you might eat several pounds of meat or whatever, and that would be good for you. But if you're a little old lady who sits home all day and does knitting, then eating too much would kill you. So the appropriate behavior, again, depends upon the individual. You have to know yourself and know, what your needs are. Same thing is true like today. Michael Phelps, the Olympic swimmer, eats enormous amounts of food because he trains anywhere from 5 to 10 hours a day, whereas the rest of us don't do that, and so most of us do not anyway need to eat that much. Now, for Aristotle, a very important concept here is the idea of balance, of finding the appropriateness between extremes. He says, for example, that virtuous behavior is something which is neither too much or too little. It's neither excessive nor defective. So, let's take courage, for example. If you are a soldier who's defending your city, you don't want to rush like a crazy person into the ranks of the enemy and then be cut to shreds, nor do you want to run away and hide behind a tree someplace. You want to be able to fight appropriately. So that appropriate ability to fight is called courage. That's the virtue of courage which guides your behavior as a soldier. So you don't want to be foolhardy, you don't want to be cowardly, you want to be courageous. Same thing with eating. If you want to eat properly, you don't want to eat too much nor too little. If you eat too much, it's gluttony. If you eat too little, it's asceticism. You want to find the appropriate amount to eat or drink or whatever. And that is what he called the golden mean. The average between this behavior which is excessive and behavior which is defective. So when you get in the middle, it's the golden mean. And so people who are truly wise and have practical wisdom will be able to perceive and understand the golden mean, the appropriate behavior. Okay, now, one last thing on this point is that for Plato, he felt that, and Socrates also, if you just contemplated things enough, you would understand what is right and you would just automatically do it. Aristotle said, no, people need to be trained. So first of all, you need education to get the training to understand what is right, and then secondly, you need to develop the habit of doing it over and over again. So you need this combination of education and habit to lead a virtuous life on a practical level, everyday level. But it is doable, and he was amazed by the fact that so many people could live virtuously through practical wisdom. All right? Now, next time we'll talk about his higher contemplation and what that meant for happiness.